Welcome to this RTS early evening event. I'm Kate Bulkley. I'm an independent media journalist and media commentator, and I'm thrilled to be here. This is a session on branded content comes of age, how brands and broadcasters are rethinking advertising. So what we're going to be talking about is not just AFP or branded content. We're also talking about different kinds of funding that isn't just product placement or isn't just brands actually funding shows, although we will talk about that too. We're also talking about what I see, because I've been covering this for a long time, is there's been a real evolution. And I would say that we're no longer in kind of a us versus them sort of situation with brands and broadcasters and commissioners and producers. Instead, we're in a situation where everyone's trying to figure out how to work together more effectively, how to surface brands more efficiently and effectively, how to make content that's even better and more wonderful because you have more money to do it, which is always a good thing if you're a producer, and all these kind of things. So it's a really, it's kind of a, I guess it's a advertising branded content 2.0 or whatever we're on now, 3.0, 4.0, whatever the new cool thing is. Okay, so I'm going to introduce our speakers and then we'll get going. And we also have a lot of clips too, and there'll be questions at the end, by the way. So next, as far from me as possible, not because I don't like him, is Simon Wells. He's, after many years in the advertising world and sometime in Endemol in the late 1990s, Simon joined Channel 4. At the end of 2013, in branded entertainment, he's now the controller of funded content and creative solutions at Channel 4. So that's Simon. Next to Simon, we have Nazir. He is head of integrated delivery at something called Wavemaker. Wavemaker is part of the WPP Group and Group M. Wavemaker calls itself a next-generation media agency. Ooh, very cool. Yes, always good to be next-gen. It was created in 2017 by the merger of MEC and Maxis. For those of you who are from advertising in the room, you'll know what that is. Those are. They have domestic and international clients, big clients like Vodafone, L'Oreal, IKEA, Paramount Pictures, GE, small company, Xerox, Colgate-Palmolive, Chevron. I mean, the list goes on. So he's interested in solutions. So he's kind of our guy who's going to talk about the whole, let's say, advent of solutions and creative and tech and these kind of things coming together. So thanks for joining us, Saj. Next to him, we have Emily Hudd. She is the joint managing director of Rumpus Media, which is obviously a production company. It was set up by Emily and Ian Wimbush in 2013, I think, yeah. Rumpus has lots of shows. If you go on their website, it's like a plethora of stuff. But she wanted me specifically to mention ones she's been specifically involved in. Joe Lycett's Got Your Back for Channel 4, and also The Misadventures of Ramesh Ranganathan for BBC 2, which I hope all of you have watched, because I just love Ramesh. Okay. And last but not least, we have Simon Wells. Greg Barnett, apologize, went to the wrong end. He's commissioning editor for Factual Entertainment at Channel 5. Greg tells me he's been at Channel 5 for so long that basically he needs to get another job. No. Yep. 10 years, he tells me. He was the commissioner for a little show you might have watched called Cruising with Jay McDonald, which won a BAFTA. Fantastic. He does a lot of factual entertainment. He does archive. And he also oversees Home and Away and Neighbors, just, in your downtime. Right. Okay. So we've got a couple of topics that we want to talk about, and then we'll open it up to you all. So let's start with you, Greg. Talk to us a little bit about how and why TV programming funding is changing. I mean, when you look at it, it used to be in the days of old, it was fairly straightforward. Is it getting more complicated now? How is funding changing?
How it's changing?
How is it changing?
There are new players in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. So there are program budgets that each of the PSBs, each of the broadcasters have to fund directly the programs, and then there are alternative arrangements in place with funding partners, I think we would call them, like Motion Content Group.
Which is part of Group M.
Correct. Krempelwood, Infinitum, they are kind of brand finders, I think.
Brand finders, they're kind of
they attach.
I think they position themselves as introducing brands to entertainment.
Yeah.
And actually they brought some very interesting models to the market.
Correct.
And that's what's interesting, it's kind of new models, right? So as you as a commissioner, let's say, have a little bit more to choose from, perhaps?
Yeah, I think there are, I think it just widens the opportunities. I think it's very important to say that the fabric, all of this, I believe, is connected to the changing fabric of how people watch television.
Okay.
So, you know, we now live in a world where we can fast forward the ads, but equally we live in a world where we can pay to view content that's positioned behind a firewall, and all of these opportunities are, to certain funding partners, are becoming more, are looking more appetizing because they throw up their own opportunities to have kind of like a slice of the pie. So it's co-funding is equally as important as kind of brand funding. So this brings into play distributors. This brings into play globally other broadcasters. You know, we make neighbours with Channel 10 in Australia.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Which is kind of, you know, although we are the senior funder in that. So, yeah.
Getting back to brands just a little bit. The brands obviously get different things out of it, and you've already mentioned that they like the idea that they're not just getting maybe the show on television, but they're also maybe getting, I don't know, something different on the on-demand, catch-up, and maybe something different on some other platform where this content is being surfaced. Who knows, maybe there's a Snapchat thing or a whatever. How does it work? I mean, do the brands come to you? Do they go to Sky Media, who's your agency? How does it work? Or is it Krempelwood that brings them? Or, you know,
I don't think there's any uniform way. They could come to an indie like Rumpus Media. They could come to one of the aforementioned companies like Wavemaker. They could come to Infinitum. They could come to Krempelwood. What each brand gets out of it, I think, is kind of dependent on what they want and what the expectations are. Certain brands, where a brand has been directly involved in the funding, they may just want kind of sponsorship bumpers and a bit of additional content. They might want some social media, as is relevant in the clip you're about to see from kind of my piece of content that I've brought to the table. But I think brands want different things. They want, equally important now, are things like the association and trust that come with good production values and talents. Some want eyeballs, some want association with brand values. You know, some want bits of additional content on other platforms. And speaking on behalf of a broadcaster, I think we would look at the bigger picture or at each kind of case by case and work out what we can do to kind of cement that deal and make it unique and bespoke.
So I want to get you to talk a little bit about, you know, editorial integrity and how that works. But do you want to show the clip first? And you've sort of explained it a little bit more.
Yeah, so this is a show that is called Britain by Bike. It's important to stipulate that the idea actually started with the broadcaster. So we kind of retained what's called the editorial control. Good. We took it out to Infinitum, who then, together with Mediacom, brought Voltrol to the table, who actually wanted to put some additional wraparound content that was very important to them.
And who were they? Who were they?
Voltrol, their pain relief.
The joy of movement.
That was very good for sudden sauce.
I know that's a cream, isn't it?
That's correct.
Ah, yes. Okay, got it. All right, so we've got Biking Around Britain, we got Voltarol, we got social media wrap.
Yeah, and they also got the sponsorship bumper on this. And the reason what you're about to see is a promo, because without kind of divulging too much, and one can never make promises, we're talking about what's in it for the brands. The broadcaster wants the brand to help amplify the noise. The brand wants the broadcaster to kind of commit as far as possible to a certain number of things. And I think it's fair to say, without Channel 5's marketing team coming down on me, one of the things they can always kind of guarantee is a promo. So this is just an example of it.
Play the promo.
Larry and George Lamb set off on a very unique road trip.
If it ain't God's country, it's pretty close.
City boys!
Cycling through Britain's extraordinary national parks.
Really need to get an electric bike, George.
And making some remarkable pit stops along the way.
Racing ferries. It's going to be the weirdest thing.
I believe that there are fairies at the far end of my garden.
Britain by Bike with Larry and George Lamb starts tonight at 8 on Channel 5.
Okay.
So what you see there is a promo that hopefully is going to entice people to watch George and Larry Lamb. And I don't know whether you could actually see maybe more so on that screen. Voltrol get kind of like a 5-second burn-in sponsor, which is probably uniform across Channel 4 as it is.
So Saj, when you look at this, I mean, brands, Greg's been talking about, brands sometimes come to them, sometimes they generate the idea and then the brand is put in.
Yeah.
You talk a little bit more about co-commissioning and things
I think it's changed significantly over the past few years. I think the importance of kind of advertiser-funded kind of content for brands is really, really important. But what we're really good at doing, and I've worked with Greg in the past and Simon and on a number of commissions, it's kind of managing the client's expectations. This isn't about you selling more product. It's potentially a way for you to own the conversation around a topic without having to outspend your competitors. Okay. But when it comes to brand assets, we always kind of talk about a bespoke suite of assets a client can use across their marketing, PR, and above-the-line activity. And I think what's come to light over the last 3 or 4 years is actually commissioning teams actually are set up to understand that. So as long as we're all managing client expectations and we're working within the Ofcom guidelines, I think it's become a much better process because we know the sorts of programs indie producers want to make. We know the kind of content tentpoles that are in your strategy over the coming months. So actually we're starting in a position that we know the type of programming you want. So we're not coming to you with an idea and say, show it. We're actually saying, what sort of content do you want to make? How can we co-commission that for it to work for all parties? And I think clients and brands are absolutely aware of that. But we always agree what assets the client will get and where they can use those assets as well.
So Emily, and Greg may come in on this too. What about, how does it work with you as an indie producer? I mean, what kind of editorial control do you have? I mean, on this example he showed, Greg says they had complete editorial control because they had the idea, but how does that work?
So with everything, the channel or the platform retain editorial control. What's interesting is we've worked different ways. So we've had shows we've made for Channel 5 that have been funded by Motion Content. We've made shows with Simon where the shows have come to us as a tender and we've pitched for them. But we've also had situations where agencies have come to us directly with a brand or brands have come to us directly. And in the instance where a brand has come to us directly, we've developed an idea with them from the beginning, and then we took it to Simon, and we made a show without an agency, which was an interesting experience.
Without an agency?
Yeah.
Ooh, interesting.
Which was interesting in terms of managing.
The agency
It was harder. I'd say to all the agency people here, actually, agencies add a lot of value and and guidance
in terms of managing expectations.
But it's managing their expectations.
But
how many people are from ad agencies in here? 1, 2. Okay, well, we don't have to worry about 3, 4. Good. Oh, we got a few more. Okay.
They're all sat together.
They're all sat together.
From the same agency.
That's for protection. Yeah, right.
But it is interesting that when you develop something with the brand or the agency, you get to really bake in the values into the idea. When it's a tender, it's a really quick process. Whereas when we've done it the other way around, and it's worked really well. And I think. We'll come into it a bit later, but I think that editorial control and independence is really important to make the quality of the programme really good, because viewers don't want a 30-minute infomercial. They want to watch something that feels really authentic. And Ofcom gives us the opportunity to keep everybody slightly at arm's length in the way that actually works really well.
Greg, do you want to come in on that or not?
No,
I mean, have you ever had an experience where you're like, oh my God, managing this
do you know what?
agency?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, when we were talking in the green room, it says I did think, because I've been at Channel 5 for 10 years. I've done about 4 or 5 traditional advertiser-funded programs as well, which would be especially in the days when Channel 5 was a standalone sales house. We had a certain high street supermarket come to us and ask us to do a kind of food cooking challenge programme, and we ummed and ahed a little bit because we weren't convinced it was going to work, and sadly on this occasion we were proven right. But the nightmare in all of this, and I shan't mention the supermarket involved, is I found the well, every little helps. I found a load of the staff kind of there was this both teams had a larder of goods from which that they could kind of use to kind of make their food. And of course, in the kind of filming break, the reset time, all the staff were there up facing the supermarket products. And so they would be prominent in the back of the shot, and you're there going, you can't do that. And you can't blame them for trying.
They're turning the jars around.
But there was kind of like, they were going, hang on a minute, from their point of view, they're going, we're paying for this. We want so there were tins of beans and tins of chopped tomatoes and everything up-faced, and so then we had to kind of distract them and then go and turn them around slightly a little bit. So they weren't so prominent on camera, but they were slightly female.
Although I'd say that things are changing, and I think they need to change, and we'll come to Ofcom in a minute, because I think we're all fearful of Ofcom, and actually the world is changing.
I think that's a very important point.
Fear.
You know,
The world is changing in the sense that what? Brands are getting savvier
brands,
about
you know, I mean,
this?
people, audiences accept this sort of stuff. Every other platform is full of it.
Right.
You know, we are just the PSBs are really, you know, we're regularly.
I mean, look at the
draft
YouTube channels. You have
Absolutely,
people who
you
are
know,
doing hair
and
products
what
and
younger
for makeup and
audiences
stuff.
understand influencers and understand that relationship, and as long as it's transparent and made clear. So I think we mustn't be. We'll come to Ofcom in a minute.
Well, I want you to right now, actually. In fact, just go ahead.
Well,
because-
I just wanted to say about you know content or sort of brand AFP as we call it. It's called AFP. I mean, I think a few years
Advertiser-funded
ago,
programming. Yep.
we actually call it branded entertainment, and it's really important. It's a brand working in the entertainment space. It's a branded content is a big thing. It's huge. It's massive. Everybody in this room probably made branded content, but branded entertainment is a sort of a quality, an entertainment subset of that, and that's what we at Channel 4, you know, really subscribe to and want to do on every project we work with a brand, make it really entertaining. But you know, and it started off, it was chop and chat shows and music shows. Sarge's point, you want to own the conversation, but now it's prime time. And at Channel 4, we really have an ambition to do prime time entertainment with brands. We'll show you some examples. We're doing something with you very shortly, which is prime time, so weekday, 9 p.m.
Wow.
You know, prime time shows.
Can we mention the name of that one?
Can't mention the name, but the talent involved is
big.
It's big talent.
Big Channel 4 talent.
And as I said, it allows our client to own a very topical conversation without having to spend tens of millions of
And
pounds.
they don't have like the cans and shot that they're trying to turn around.
No, actually, interestingly enough, no.
Just
But they do have the subject matter that this brand is
Right.
really involved in
Well, that's
as
great.
the front and centre.
And see, that works because it's like the brand, it works with the brand values.
Yeah.
And it works with a program that is topical, I assume, because Channel 4 likes to be topical.
Yeah.
So that's the nirvana.
And it's
okay.
entertainment, and you know we're moving into that prime time. So, but the important thing to say is that you know it's we do the editorial, but we are really happy for the brand to fill its boots with the assets around that show or the extra content we talk about, social back. You know, advertising, to make advertising do effectively what we do with programs like Gogglebox is license it to make ads. So if you make a show with us, an entertainment show, you can then take those assets and take that IP and create advertising. Work with the talent, which we'll come to later as well. So make a campaign out of it. Don't just think of a television show. That's the kind of centerpiece. That's the must-watch, the kind of seek-out content.
Right.
But make a campaign. Go back to what advertising is saying something through the editorial and selling using the kind of halo assets, the other content around it.
Oh, that was very good. Let me ask you this. Now the Ofcom rules, because it all starts, if you're doing the television bit, you have to still comply with the Ofcom rules. So Section 9 is the one that everybody always talks about, right? So talk us a little bit about this. I mean, it seems to me that there's still a lot of fear, and I'm going to ask Emily about this too, from producers about, oh my God, am I going to go over are we going to get, is the hammer going to come down from Ofcom? How do I not get on the bad side of Ofcom? So Simon, why don't you start a little bit about that?
Well, I mean, that's very true. A lot of producers, commissioning editors, a lot of people are really concerned about the Ofcom code. We've got a brilliant compliance head at Channel 4 called Neil Pepin, who's always kind of going, let's see how we can do this. Let's see the clever ways we can do this. I mean, the most important thing to say is don't be frightened of them. The three kind of key phrases of the, or kind of sections of the code are nothing, it mustn't, a product or service or brand must not be unduly prominent. It must be editorially justified and it cannot be promotional. But actually that gives you, the only one that's a bit tight is it cannot be promotional. That's quite clear. You can't say this brand of X is this much is 50p off or whatever, but you can be unduly prominent, like we are in All-Star Driving School, where the Suzuki cars are everywhere. They're all over it. Every single shop has got a Suzuki car in it.
But it's allowed to be unduly prominent because it's editorial justified because it's about cars.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay.
And so the rules are there. I think the other thing to say is, overshoot it. If you're worried, just shoot it. If you haven't shot it, you haven't got it. So we always say the producer shoot it all. Cover it and have it, and then we can Then we can decide in the edit, and then we can make that additional content that you can use on your platforms and in the ads. And so it's really important not to be frightened of these regulations. Actually push them because they are a bit outdated, frankly. This is 2019.
This news just in. They're outdated. Ofcom here? No, they didn't.
Not all of them.
Right.
Not all of them. But
so is this the moment to show Hillary's? Can you pitch that up to us?
Yes, I mean, Hillary's is currently, this is tonight's show. So Hillary's is a 4-week daily strip show. Hillary's Blinds, it's called Your Room or Mine. It's a makeover show. It's an interesting format. 4 couples do make over each other's rooms, but they don't do them in real life. They do them in the studio. We built a recreation of each room each day in the studio, and each of the other 3 couples make over that room, and then the couple who aren't making over that day get to decide which one they prefer, and then it's made over. Now, it's got fabulous opportunity to put blinds and window dressings in it, because that's the most important part in any room you make over. So
at least it is according to Hillary.
It's really important, window dressing. So we had a kind of conversation with the producers going, we can't...
Gotta have windows.
We gotta have windows. We've got to show the windows.
So Simon, did Hillary's come to you, or did you go to Hillary's, or how did it work?
That one was one where we put it out. Well, we work in a number of ways. We didn't actually put it out to tender. We had a show we wanted to make. We had a client who wanted to make an ad-funded program, and we went, this is a great show for you to
So you actually came up with a pitch thinking about Hillary's.
So it works, as we said earlier, I mean, this works in a number of ways. We're all talking to each other. Sometimes producers come to us with brands. We get a lot of briefs. Right. We've got a head of programming who says, find me great ideas and clever ways to pay for them. Right. And one of the clever ways is working in partnership with a brand, an advertiser.
Okay. This isn't your client, is it?
It's not, no, unfortunately.
Okay. Do you want to play the clip first?
Yeah.
Let's play the Hillary's clip.
Within the context of, this is kind of like how much of a window, you can show windows and blinds and dressing, so don't be frightened of
So watch the windows, okay? This is important. Okay, here we go. Play the clip. Hillary's.
4 pairs of homeowners, each with unique tastes in interior design.
Hi, boys.
I feel like making a balsamic dressing.
Are going to make over replicas of each other's rooms. Before visiting each other's houses.
Hello.
To see whose prize-winning designs were chosen.
Tensions are quite high today. You know what she's doing, don't you?
On tonight's show, the new designers face a retro challenge.
I'm not getting the purple. I'm just not getting it.
And all the chatter is about patterns and fashions.
Let's have a chat later about what we're all wearing for tomorrow, because this is awkward, isn't it?
We may not all love each other's tastes in home decor.
Don't do the crime if you can't do the time.
Drama. Yeah.
But we all love our homes. This is...
Hello.
Your room or mine. One week later, after 20 years, Leslie's bedroom has finally been given a new lease of life.
Hey, hey.
Hello.
Hey,
you look wonderful.
Lovely to see you. Oh, the boys just got here as well. Yeah. Oh, cool. Come on, everybody's here. Let's get this going.
Oh, it's exciting.
Well, my bedroom's up the stairs, so if you want to go and have a look.
Oh, yes, please.
But which of the 3 designs has triumphed?
Oh, wow. Oh, my God, it's us.
Nathan and David have won, thanks to their collision of colours, influences and themes. The gentle flock wallpaper tames the deep plum on the chimney wall, while the brushed copper Venetian blends with the purple Roman blind to tie the tones together. The classic G-plan furniture helps build the feeling of another time, which is just what Leslie wanted.
So Simon, how difficult was it to get Hillary to agree to this? In other words, was it a slam dunk?
Not that difficult, to be honest. It was a great, they saw it as a good show to showcase their different window dressing, because you see, it doesn't. The last bit was where they do the big reveal of the finished room and talk about the blinds and the window dressing. It gave them three opportunities in each show to show different types of window curtains or whatever. But it's, you know, it's an intrinsic part of the format. And I just, you know, we then shot lots of extra content for social and for their digital channels, which was all the different window designs in the rooms. And so start talking about giving them content which talks about one room, three different ways, three different window designs. So it's a really neat way of bringing a brand, you know, relevance into some great factual entertainment.
So Emily, when you look at this as a producer, do you sort of think, you know, gosh, well, here really sounds like they're fairly, you know, they understand how it works. Do most brands understand how this works?
No.
No.
They don't. What's interesting is I think when brands come to something for the first time, the idea is, oh my God, I can get all this content and it's not going to cost me very much money. Oh my God, that's amazing.
That's amazing.
And then, you know, if you've got really good agencies working with them, I think what we were talking about earlier in terms of process, this all works really well if you've got kind of rigid process in place from the beginning. So where ad agencies or branded agencies would have PPMs, you fold in your production into that.
PPMs.
So a pre-production meeting.
Right, pre-production meetings,
We have a lot more meetings on these projects than you do on others.
Like what, double the amount of meetings? Triple the amount?
80% meetings, 20% working.
Wow.
No, I'm joking, but I think it is important that at the very beginning you set out your stall and you say, right, you bring compliance people in right at the beginning, you actually go through the code and you talk about what is possible and what isn't, and you can talk about specific scenarios and work through them. And as Simon's saying, you know, there's lots of instances in which things are editorially justified, and actually as producers we don't now go into these things feeling worried that we're going to be unduly prominent because everyone is so across it right at the beginning. And if the client really understands their input, and a key part of this is the notes.
The notes, right.
Yeah, so when you make the show, you send it out and the rough cut goes to channel first and then it goes to the client, and then the client can make notes that are relevant to brand representation.
Right. But nothing else, just brand representation.
So then we can consult about the notes and go back, and actually that can work really smoothly and well if you've had all the conversations up front.
Absolutely.
That's a good point.
Because tone, style, you know, that needs to be agreed up front. So the meetings are really important because if you make a show and they didn't understand the tone of it, you've got trouble, you've got problems, and then editorial kind of independence gets compromised.
I think one of the first things we do if a brand's looking to make a programme like this, we will literally sit them down and physically take them through the Ofcom code, because we don't want to have 50 meetings over a product being placed in a segment of a show. So that's one of the first things we do is run them through the Ofcom code, which always helps.
So Greg, when you look at this, I mean, is there something that you have to add to this? I mean, do you find that the process of all this has become easier with the brands, or, I mean, are brands getting more savvy about it, or is that not something you really hear as a commissioner?
No, it's safe to say, I think what Emily essentially has been saying here is correct. I think and Simon, actually, times have changed, things have moved on, and we're a lot more kind of savvy, but I think that's across the board. I think not only at the broadcaster, with the commissioning editors, and there is always the content legal teams kind of, you know, and the lawyers to fall back on, but also the brand, the media agencies, the brand partners and the indies themselves, we're a lot more savvy. We've probably all had our fingers burned, like me, in the can turning, but it's because of that we are where we are now. I think there's greater understanding of it, which kind of makes it easier, and I think Emily's absolutely bang on. You do kind of get your content legal people involved from a very early stage, and you do have a lot of meetings and a lot of notes.
Yeah, but you got them out of the way, and the other thing I think is to not just have the meetings at the beginning, but also to think about how you can all work together after the life of the programme. So after the programme's gone out, now when we're creating, we want everything to have a life beyond TX, right? So we're creating programmes that have IP, and we want the brand to be involved in that IP as we go forward. So when we made our driving school show, that's been made in 5 other territories around the world, and the brand have an option to fund it in those territories. And on other shows, the brands have an IP position when it's made around the world. So, you know, they've got an opportunity for their TV brand to be rolled out in all the territories where they've got product.
That's really interesting. So it's not just, as Simon was saying, creating the media assets which go with the show. So Hillary's is taking some stuff and putting it on social or whatever they're on their website or whatever they're doing. Maybe it's Instagram. But it's also the actual format. You're actually saying to them, look, this could be a format that, like the Suzuki Driving School, or maybe even the room, I can't remember what it's called now.
Your Room or Mine.
Your Room or Mine. That could be a format. And it could actually go to another country, and that brand could decide whether they wanted to be part of that, and that would be another place for them to fund, which would help that broadcaster and also help their brand. That's interesting.
And traditionally, on the terms of trade, these would be buyouts. So there'd be a tender from a channel and you'd be thinking, do I want to take them my best idea? Because actually it will just be gone and I won't get to exploit it. And now actually things are evolving. You will take your best idea to be funded by a brand because actually you can make that show exactly how you want to make it. And
I think it's a great opportunity. I think
Mm.
it's a great opportunity particularly if you think of brands like Unilever, who really, sort of said, right, we're going to set up an entertainment division. We're looking for formats. We want to take shows that travel multiple territories because we're in multiple territories. Car companies. So this is an opportunity, and brands and media agencies and clients are getting very savvy to that opportunity as well.
Yeah, as you say, it's Unilever's a brand, but it's also like Motion Content does that too. I mean, they want to own the IP so that when they take it, or at least some of the IP, so that when they take it to another country, they can put their brands that would be appropriate in Thailand or Japan or whatever it is that would make sense. But you, as a producer, get to keep some of that and be in control.
I mean, it's different with Motion and some of
different with Motion.
So AFP is different. I mean, it's definitely a share. We'd be looking at a collaboration, a partnership. In using the content as a marketing asset. That's the key difference between what we're talking about in branded entertainment, AFP, and Motion Content Program Finance, which is more commercial.
Okay, where they own it all, and then you wouldn't.
Well, I think with GMA, my experience, obviously they're a part of Group M, is they might own a percentage of format sales or kind of programming sales. Doesn't necessarily need to have a brand involved in any way, shape or form. It's more a commercial way of funding programming that pay dividends to all parties.
Okay. What was I going to ask you about? I had a note here, Greg, about Costa and Co-op and Coronation Street. Are those? That really isn't this particular topic, is it? Let's go to topic 3. We may come back to that. So topic 3. One of the topic that I wanted to talk about next was the impact of technology. Now we've already kind of hit on it in the sense of like taking media assets and putting it on different platforms. But Saj, talk to us a little bit about the kind of different platforms and devices and social sites that you're thinking about, and how does technology change or add to?
I think the first thing I'm going to start by saying is good content aligns with people's emotions and passion points. And when we're producing an advertiser-funded program, for example, that is just the tip of the iceberg. It's the ecosystem that lives around it. I think over the last 10 years, we've seen broadcasters make huge advancements in their tech, be it from 4K to, kind of Sky Plus, etc. All of that stuff has happened. Now, what we are seeing now is actually voice is a huge part of what we do. And I think most broadcasters now are working on or have the facility for someone to quite literally speak into a handset and be served all the content they're after. Very simple. But before I get to that, I wanted to talk about a couple of other bits. Dual screening. Now, dual screening was a trend, but I think it's now a way of life. Anybody who's watching Celebrity X Factor, whenever it's on, I go onto Twitter and people are going absolutely mad over it, right? So I think that has been there for a long time, but I think all of these technologies evolve over time.
So by dual screening, you mean somebody's watching the big television, but they've also got their device and they're doing something slightly different. They might be voting or, chatting.
Indeed, or they might be searching for more information, or they might be kind of sharing something on social. So I think that is a great way for brands, or from my perspective, for brands to create really good content that people can grab and share and it only goes to kind of increase your organic reach. So I think that's one bit, and I think dual screening will continue and it will get more advanced. But what we are now talking to is social platforms. So, making engaging content's great, but we need to engage our audiences via algorithms. So we make sure any additional content that we make is actually topical and always trending while that program's on. So we're making sure the right people are seeing the content at the right time.
These are on social platforms, right?
Yeah, on social.
So you're taking the content and you're targeting them using an algorithm.
Yeah, so it's two A's. One is social content, and the other is SEO. I won't bore you, but just
search engine optimization.
Indeed, yeah. So we're looking more and more into that as well.
Yeah.
One thing I've noticed in other markets, particularly with Wavemaker and some of our clients, shoppable content is becoming really key.
Shoppable. Oh, I love that. I mean, in other words, I see those sunglasses and I go, I want them.
Absolutely. So.
Do people really do that?
They do.
They do.
They do. Yes. As far as I'm aware. So I think what we found is. We're not allowed to do it because of Ofcom restrictions at the moment, but what we are seeing is more and more brands.
You can't do it on television, but you could do it on a social platform.
So when we're talking about, kind of makeover programs or cooking programs, actually, some of the markets across Europe are actually doing that. You will have a scene, you'll be able to watch it, click to buy, and it's delivered to your house the next day.
Make Your Room or Mine. We could run it on digital or social. We could run it on our social channel. We're actively promoting and pushing our social channels, which have massive reach.
Yeah.
Putting some of that content and make it shoppable on our social channels.
Yeah.
And buy the blinds or whatever. So, that's a big thing as well.
Is that happening yet, or is that something that's coming?
It is happening actually.
Amazon are about to do it.
Yeah. So Greg and I, for our sins, worked at Channel 5 when they had Big Brother.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, eBay were actually sponsoring Big Brother. So everything in the house was bought off of eBay. So what we did is actually, we had some clips of the shows, and actually people could do a virtual tour around the house. If they liked something, we'd already bought it, so they could buy it, and when the show was over,
so you could sell it to them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So viewers had the chance to buy things from the house. I'm not sure I'd want to do that, but and it worked really, really well. So
how much sales did you get? I mean, what?
It was literally we just sold the set.
Just sold the set.
Yeah. So we basically.
I mean, this is a new revenue stream. You have a set, just sell the set.
Yeah. But you can do that with ingredients. You can do that with blinds, and I think that's something that is going to become prevalent in the next months, I think, or years.
Do you think this is one of the things that Ofcom should change? Do you think we should be able to shop things off the channel, or do you think that's a real step too far?
I think on the linear, the entertainment channel, no. But I do think that there should be an opportunity in some way to use some sort of other platform or very easily accessible opportunities to shop it. Yeah. I do understand people may not want to, watch a TV show and have that kind of intrude. But if there was an easy way and a recognised way to be able to buy products off an entertainment show, I think that's a great thing. I mean, search. You were talking about voice search. I mean, Channel 4 now we work with Alexa and Google Home to have all of our television shows now recognised by both Alexa and Google Home. So you just have to ask your Fire Stick, get me First Dates, and up it comes. Which episode do you want to watch? And I think the point about that is...
I love this image. Just ask your Fire Stick. Okay, yes. Fire Stick?
Or your TV. But it's going to be huge because content is king. And one of the reasons brands want to get into entertainment content is because it's a great way to engage audiences emotionally. Back in the great days of advertising, people made the audiences feel something in advertising. And it's kind of lost that, but program entertainment is a great way to get that back and create sort of that emotion.
So Saj, you talked about double screening, then you talked about shoppable. What was your other one?
Voice.
Okay, so voice. So that was a good segue.
Yeah, so I think we've been doing a lot of work around voice, particularly with Amazon and Google. I mean, they've given us access that perhaps they haven't given other agencies. And what we found, I think, at one point it was predicted by 2022, I think it was, that 50% of searches will be done via voice. Now...
50%?
50%. Now, I can add some, if anybody wants to know, I can give you the figures. 2022, I think it was.
2022, okay.
But I think realistically, what we've looked at is we know that kind of speaker penetration, not smart speaker penetration, is already in 20% of UK households, and people are using it. I think with Google Assistant now, you know, potentially you've got access to 83% of the mobile market, and we're seeing that people are actually searching for all sorts of stuff. So what we did is we started to work with our clients to create what we call voice apps. And actually, if we could play the clip now, and then I can add some context to it later.
Okay, so play the Alexa.
Yeah.
A new survey suggests that more support needs to be given to new mothers to help them breastfeed for longer, after it was revealed that in England, some of the lowest breastfeeding rates in the world can be found.
Most mums start breastfeeding, but there's an incredible drop-off. Why? We pinpointed a pivotal moment in the routine, those exhausting and lonely early hours between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. when healthcare support just isn't available. With a baby in your arms, you need support that's hands-free that you can simply ask for help. We created, developed and executed Start for Life Breastfeeding Friend, the UK's first bespoke breastfeeding voice assistant to run on connected home and mobile devices, accessible to new mums, on demand, any time of day or night.
Alexa, open Breastfeeding Friend.
Our precise answers to the most searched problem areas were voiced reassuringly in a calm, friendly midwife tone.
It's very rare that mums don't make enough breast milk for their babies, so it may just take a bit of time before you feel confident that you're providing enough.
With limited budget and on new ground, we worked with Mumsnet to beta test and with Amazon to drive discoverability and generate advocacy. Mums love it. With average 5-star review ratings that will keep Breastfeeding Friend top of page. Amazon loves it. Breastfeeding Friend is now Amazon's default answer to all breastfeeding queries. We're scaling to Android Pixel and Google Assistant to reach mass market mums, with visual information cards for mobile, and lullabies, a timer, and entertainment to alleviate breastfeeding boredom. Due soon. Breastfeeding Friend has generated 136 pieces of PR coverage, providing 33.2 million opportunities to see.
We're so proud of this work. We've used new and emerging technology in such a human way to help mums breastfeed.
That was one of our first campaigns we did, and actually the government have actually asked us to make quite a few more of these. Now, what our brands have started to do, they've seen the success of this, so we are now talking to brands about potentially doing AFPs. Now, as I said, if you're watching a programme, you're often on your mobile phone and you will search for something. All that allows us to do, so let's say we were doing a baking show, shall we say. Now, if I'm watching that baking show, I may say, Alexa, how do I make a Victoria sponge, for example, right? Now, what this allows us to do is own all of those search terms. So as soon as someone asks that questions, you are fed content, be it podcasts, be it a cook-along series, or actually something Domino's are doing. You can actually now say to your Alexa, go and get me a pizza. Now, what it will do, it will get your pizza, your favourite pizza. You don't need to, I mean, you know, I was saying earlier, why type when you can talk, right? So it's really simple. You don't even need to put in your credit card details because they're already in there. So now some of our brands are saying, well, hang on a minute, if we're making an AFP, can we own those search terms, and actually can we now produce audio content that will really supplement the programming on television? A really, really interesting area, and as I said, I mean, our brands are very much in that space, so I think it's a really big opportunity for all of us.
So, Simon, you have a little baking show.
Yeah.
Sponsored by...
Something, I think it's called the Great British something, yeah. So what about doing something with that? I mean, have you thought about that? Or is this the pitch?
Well, I personally
Maybe it
haven't,
was the pitch.
Sure,
This
some
might
of
be
the
the pitch.
bright sparks at Channel 4 are thinking about that. But I mean, to that point, I think, you know, we particularly when we're with advertisers in our area, we're looking at every single opportunity. We're open-minded. We want to do this sort of new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to push the envelope. So working with a brand, actually, quite often, what it shows you is that when an agency comes along, they come along and go, well, can we do this as well? Mm-hmm. So it challenges us to start thinking of new ways of doing things, using tech around, but it goes back, the most important part is a piece of great entertainment that engages people emotionally, and then you can take them on that journey. So, we're really keen to do that, and I should be telling them about that.
But, I mean, I will add that the onus was on us as an agency to kind of come up with this solution. So it was, months of planning. Amazon allowed us to cast our own voice to make sure, it was it was right for the audience. Neuroscientists were involved as well. So a lot of work went into the initial process, but now we're ready to work with broadcasters to roll this out and create really compelling content.
Okay, I'm thinking of other tech platforms, like, there's obviously Alexa Voice is the cool one. But like, for instance, Twitter is really big into TV now, and they want to do stuff. I mean, are the other platforms, Snap, are they Instagram, are they getting involved in this stuff as well, or not so much?
It's interesting because if we're talking about content on social platforms, you can see it as two ways, a positive and a negative. Without doubt, I think some of the digital publishers are creating now long-form content. You've only got to look at what Joe Media is doing around rugby, for example. And actually tech does kind of come in very early on in that conversation. However, I would still say that it's a huge opportunity for us if we're making branded entertainment, because one, we can use their platforms to drive more viewers by seeding some of our content. But that second window opportunity, and I think broadcasters are now very much open to giving the rights or the opportunity to another partner to show the full content after they've premiered it. And again, that's huge for clients and brands as well. So I think that's a very interesting space to watch.
Now, Greg, you've been working a little bit with, I think, digital product placement, right?
Correct.
Talk a little bit about that. Is that, because that's kind of a newish technology.
So Neighbours is an interesting piece of content because it is made, and Home and Away obviously are made down under, but they are global brands. So Saj, and his team, when they were working, when we were working together at Channel 5, came up with, had a conversation with Myriad.
We used Myriad, and I think the brand was Aldi, and so whenever someone walked back from, I don't know, the local shop and they were carrying a shopping bag, it was Aldi. The issue was there was no Aldi in Australia. People picked up on that.
But actually that's a very important point. But they're all supposed to shop at Harold's. But actually, that's just to cut in at this point before we delve into the tech. This is a classic example of how content can be made international that isn't made in the UK. Can still provide opportunities for UK clients, because Neighbours comes out of Melbourne, Home and Away from Neighbours, and Myriad came up with a formula where posters, billboards, advertising, everything could be digitally product placed within content. And if that's not just happening here on Channel 5 in the UK, but I mean, Neighbours and Home and Away, they sell to RTE in Ireland, TVNZ in New Zealand.
So it
creates a global opportunity for local brands to capitalize.
Local brand product. Because just help me out here. Myriad basically allows you to kind of take that cereal box out and put another one in.
Yes, essentially, you might have an item there, it could be a cup of tea, and you can replace that with a can of Coke. I should just quantify that you can also filter the territory the digital product placement goes out with. So, you wouldn't have seen Aldi go out in Australia or Singapore. It would have gone out maybe in Europe. So, but it's a really good opportunity. I will say, I think that it's quite a complicated process and a lot of work needs to go into it. But the client absolutely loved it.
But it adds value to the stakeholders in that. So Channel 5, because we kind of got a bit of Vernoff and Fremantle Media who made that, and Channel 7 who made Home and Away. If anybody watches Coronation Street in the room, this is coming back to a point about Costa and Co-op. We're now seeing in soaps, which traditionally have been fictional territories, environments. Weatherfield is a fictional place. Walford is a fictional place. But now, for the first time in Weatherfield on the Coronation Street set, there is physical product placement in the form of a Costa coffee shop and a Co-op Weatherfield. Now, we can't do that on Neighbours, actually we probably could do it on Neighbours, but we'd have to find an international brand or brands that work in every territory to which Neighbours is sold.
Or just get Myriad to take the
changes. But again, that's but interesting that now we have real brands crossing into fictional places.
Right. And of course they're paying to do that because they love that. Yeah. Simon, do you have something to add on this? I think you sort of did your thing about voice and stuff already, right? On this, okay. Let's go on to the other topic, because talent is kind of an interesting one. And Emily, I'm going to start with you on this. Talent. Everyone loves talent. I mean, when you start doing a program, there's a lot of talent-led programming out there. How are they working with, the brand-funded and the all this kind of stuff? Because on YouTube, we see it all the time. I mean, it's blatant. I mean, it's right there. People seem to be, well, it just seems to be all over the place. So how is it working with talent in television?
So it is quite new, and some people are a bit tentative about it. And I think having meetings with agents where people want talent, not all the brands want talent in there. Sometimes they just want a format, but if they do want sort of key talent, we work a lot with comedians. You know, we'll meet them and we'll talk them through the idea first and foremost, and then explain and reassure about what the brand involvement is, because I think that what's great for the brand is they can get some really good big talent affiliated with their brand, but they're not paying for a brand ambassador.
Right.
They can do as an extension of that,
right.
But there's no necessarily a direct relationship between those two things, which is good because you've got more scope in terms of who you're going to book and put on your program.
So you have to be authentic. You have to find out what the talent might be happy.
Yeah, some people are a bit resistant to it because they wouldn't do ads. Some people won't do adverts. And if they won't do adverts, you have to have another conversation about this. But I think, you know, once you've reassured them, and again, just having lots of clarity at the beginning of the process, I think is really good. But it does open up who you can put in these kind of shows. And I think, you know, we're always looking. The first thing is, what is their reach? So when we're putting together casting documents for these shows, social is always first.
Okay. So how many Instagram followers do they have?
How many Instagram followers, Twitter, you know, that is a really important
Is there
factor.
is there a benchmark? In other words, if it's less than 100,000, go home?
It depends who it is and what they're selling. If they're extremely cool and they don't have that many followers, it might be okay. But you can also sometimes, you know, when we work with people who have enormous social followings before and other shows that aren't funded by brands, that enormous social following does not necessarily come to TV.
No.
Right.
So you're like, oh my God, they've got 10 million people following them, but only 100,000 people watch the show. You know, there's not necessarily a direct relationship, but I think...
But then can't you just put the stuff on the other platforms? I mean, the assets, as Simon said, the media assets, and get it on the platform where all the followers are.
And they'll do brilliantly well, but they won't necessarily pull...
back to TV.
They won't necessarily pull back,
but, you know, to echo your point, I mean, brands like to be close to talent, but maybe not necessarily the endorsement kind of that the talent will do when they do an ad, but they'll be, you know, they're in my show. And then, you know, as a channel, we will say to talent, you need to do, you know, some social media support, you need to post content on your platform.
And they'll promote it actually in a more authentic way than they would necessarily do as a brand.
Authentic. Yeah. And they're happier clients are like that. And if the client and the advertiser, to your point, I mean, most talent I'm finding nowadays are kind of going, yeah, I'll do it because I know that show won't happen unless I do it with brand X. And hey, they're not a bad brand. And as long as I'm not asked to go, brand X is great. But then you go, well, you can, and there'll be more money involved. Yeah. And when we're talking to clients, you know, we'll go, the option exists if you want a deeper relationship, you want them to be in your ads straight after the show in the commercial breaks.
Right.
You can. Yeah. And it's going to be not an editorial rate, it's more of an advertising rate. Yeah. So those conversations definitely always happen. And we get, you know, we've done All-Star Driving School with a great range of talent, and they were doing a lot of social content themselves. In fact, one of the chaps went on TV and then bought the car, didn't he?
I know.
He bought the car.
Yeah,
the car. He told everybody he bought the car.
No discount. He bought the car.
No discount.
Yeah.
So
that's the kind of brand ambassador you want.
I mean, we were thrilled, and they were thrilled, you know, because he talked about it. So you know, it's about authenticity more than anything. And then you know, people know when people are being paid to do things. You know, and I think we try and keep this in the space where this is genuine, authentic entertainment, and you know the conversation can go further.
Yeah, I think there's a middle ground as well. We made a program called Mission Mudder a long time ago when I was at Sky, and essentially it was Jeep funding it. So we gave each brand ambassador, which is Olympians, we said, look, you've got a vehicle for a year. All we ask you to do is a monthly diary. Obviously, we
don't crash it.
Yeah, don't crash it. Don't drink, drive, and then obviously, and then we just had some parameters in place, some do's and don'ts, and actually, just the organic reach we got off of that was phenomenal because they were absolutely, they're all adventurers, they're all a kind of extreme athletes. So, their vehicle of choice in their diary was a Jeep, and some of them we entered into a relationship with where we pay them a vast amount of money to be brand ambassadors in an advertising sense. So, I mean, it's quite a broad spectrum to play in.
So, but Sky didn't get any of that money because that would have been separate. That would have just been for the talent, or would Sky have gotten some of the money?
No,
from the show?
so that was just an agreement between us and the talent.
Yeah. So it's interesting because there's lots of different bits of this.
Yeah.
You're trying to get a show on air, and you have, as you say, the Olympians in this one, and then you've got Jeep, and so you give them the car, and so Sky gets some money to help get the show off the ground, right? But then you got this other thing where, this guy is doing really well, this gal is doing really well, so let's make her or him a brand ambassador. Yeah. She gets a little bit more money. It's interesting. So there's different bits of it.
Yeah, and a part of it was, as we said to Simon, at the outset we said to them, look, would you like a Jeep for a year? And it was a part of the package, really.
Sure.
But they went over and above what we expected, which is always great.
Yeah. So Emily, talk to me about, because I want to get to your clip, talk to us about this talent, Loyal Carner.
Loyal Carner is a rapper. And
he's a rapper.
He's a rapper. And this is quite interesting because this is a reversal of what we've just been talking about, because he is already a brand ambassador for Timberland boots and clothing. And he's involved in a project that they've got which is about urban greening. So about going to unloved sort of concrete areas of the UK and making them over for mental health and climate benefit.
That's great.
He's
More
really
green.
He's really involved in it in a genuine way. And so we've created, it's for MTV with drum, and it's the first one we've done outside of Channel 4. And we shot something last week, so this is super raw, it's just straight out of the edit. It's not nearly as shiny as all of the other bits that have got other stuff on, but it's quite interesting because it's the first time we've used talent in a more documentary space. Normally we're thinking it's much more formatted and entertainment. So it'll be interesting to see how this feels, and what we've tried to do is actually the sort of branded part of it feels much more minimal in the way that it's executed, but hopefully, well, you'll see because he's wearing a Timberland jacket, that it is still embedded in it.
Okay, so watch for Timberland. Let's play this clip.
So can I ask a question? So Timberland are really, really supporting urban greening as well.
Yeah.
Is that, so they're meeting of minds and values.
Yeah, and they're involved in, so they fund this thing with National Park Cities, which is this organisation. So there are lots of sort of greening organisations that are involved in it. So it's not a piece of content about their clothes, it's about their message.
It's about their values.
Yeah, it's about their values.
About what they stand for.
And how, as the audience, how am I going to know that Timberland, other than the fact that he's got the jacket, or is he going to have? I mean, is he going to mention it? Is he going to name
so you'll have integrated titles.
Okay.
So what we do is we either create bumpers or we create integrated titles, depending on what the client wants. So there'll be branding in the titles, and there'll obviously be lots of additional deliverables. But it is about stealthily weaving in the message of the brand. Yeah. And all of his wardrobe had to go through a very rigorous compliance process at the very beginning, and we had stylists on every single shoot to make sure that he was wearing everything in the right way. But
wearing it the right way.
But it is a bit more subtle. Yeah. It is a bit more subtle, but it was really important because you can't put a show on MTV next to what's the tattoo? Just Tattoo of Us, and go. It just feels like it's from a completely different world, and they're trying to move more into factual, fact-tense space. So we're just very mindful of how you adapt your approach.
It's credibility, isn't it? Authenticity. And we've got a client, one of my colleagues is here, Stella, who said to us, look, I really don't want to be all over this show. I want, people, my audience will know that because I am not front and centre and sort of like big shots of it, they know, but they'll know that I'm part of this because it's a really credible music show. It was a headphone brand, I won't say which one, but for them it was really important. If you ask me afterwards, I'll let you know. But I mean, that was really important to them. So they don't, not every advertiser wants that sort of in your face because sometimes it's too much. It's not authentic, and it's the audiences will know. I think audiences are very sophisticated now. Because they're exposed to this on YouTube and influencers, so they know that when it's on television, it has another level of authenticity. So, you know, I completely get it, and I think it looks great.
Okay, so Saj, now you can't tell me that every brand gets it has to be authentic. Are you still having to do some education?
Is a short answer, but I mean...
But some do.
Yeah, some do. I mean, and sometimes, you know, we're dealing with brands that don't have a tangible product, right?
Yeah,
so, you know, it's a
message.
service or it's a product you may not see, you know. So, and that happens a lot. They just, as I said earlier, they want to own the conversation in the industry around, you know, what's coming next.
But one of our most successful AFPs, we won lots of awards, was for Age UK. Yeah. And that was Old People's Home at Christmas. We made a special Christmas show, which was a show we were all, you know, we'd made already, and we wanted to do a Christmas version. And we went out and talked to a few people. And Age UK said, we want the message about old people and loneliness at Christmas to be really prominent, you know, really come out, but in an authentic way. And we do ads and we tell people, and people, we got, you know, the Old People's Home at Christmas was a very emotional story about these old people and the kids coming in. And then we ran these contextual ads with the old people and the kids in the commercial break saying, unlike us, 1.2 million old people will be alone this Christmas. Please help us do something about it. That was the most successful direct, you know, CTA commercial they ever made, because it's surrounded by some really strong, authentic, entertaining editorial that made people feel something. And then you hit them with the commercial message.
That's right.
And I think that's what we were talking about.
Compliant,
And I think earlier we were talking about, you know, the AFP being a small nugget in a big ecosystem, and that's a great example of how to do it really well.
So let me ask you this, getting back to talent again, Simon. For instance, you're going to show a clip, I think, with Ant Middleton, right? Yeah. So in this clip, you know, talk us into this, because did Ant even know what Baraka was before you had this conversation with him? I mean, Ant is sort of
probably
an adventurer.
If he'd been on a night out and had a bit of a hangover, he may have known what it was. But he doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who does that.
So tell us the story about this. How did he, as a talent, get involved with this, and why did you bring Baraka?
He's a Channel 4 talent. We were looking for, we had another vehicle for him, which was, you know, he wanted to climb Everest, basically. He wanted to do something he wanted to do. He said, I wanted to climb Everest, and I'm happy for Channel 4 to film it. We went, well, that's a great ambition, great show.
That's going to
be it's going to be very expensive. We don't have that sort of money to pay for the whole show, but I tell you what, you know, we'll do. One of our approaches now is, you know, back to the first point that you made about, you know, clever ways to pay for programs and co-pros. This ultimately became a co-pro, but with an advertiser, who we went to those good guys at Mediacom, and Paul Tremaine and his team, and showed him this idea, and he went, that is perfect for Baraka. That chimes with their brand values, which is no day too tough. You know, you've been out on the piss, the next day is going to be tough. Have a Baraka, you know. And so,
did you know that before we went in?
No, we didn't know that.
So that was where the agency was good, because you went in and said, we got Ant, we got Everest.
Agency was excellent.
And they said, hey, we got one for you.
Agencies are really important in this process, and they're also important, you know, because they handle the brand strategy, they understand what the direction the brand and the advertiser wants to take.
Okay, so how did Ant feel about it?
Ant went, I want to climb Everest. You're going to give me Baraka? And he was fine about it. You know, we explained, to Emily's point, we went through the, you know, Baraka's going to pay for this. You're going to have to do some extra stuff. You're going to have to make some personal appearances. And I think what you'll see here is how it is a great BT. I love it. And I think the agency made it so it comes from the advertiser's perspective of what do they get out of this and what did their client get out of this. So it's really strong on that messaging. It's not a show example. This is a story. This is it goes back to the, you know, branded content comes of age. That this does that. It shows you what Ant did for the brand. It shows you he went on personal appearances. He did lots of great support.
So it's sort of a case study about how it worked.
Effectively, it's a case study.
And just before we watch that, this went out. How many eps was it? I mean, was it?
It was a 90-minute. It's a
90-minute.
Yeah, 90 minute.
And how did it do on ratings? I mean, did people watch it?
Amazingly well. I mean, you know, for it beats slot average by something like 40 or 50%. It was a really big, and on VOD it did fantastically. And all the kind of extra content we made. The video will tell the better story than I.
Let's roll the clip, please.
I've never ever felt like that before in my life, ever. Even in combat zones, I've never felt so useless in all my life. No word of a lie. I thought I was dead.
You're joking. Oh my god. No. Dead zone.
No way that you're going to reach the summit without teamwork.
Very cool. Yeah, very cool. Okay, does anybody else want to make a comment about talent, or have we? Yeah.
Great tape, Simon.
Where's Paul Tremaine?
Let's
Tom Curtis, I think, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's open it up to you all. I mean, I have some more questions I can ask, but does anyone have some questions for our panel? There's one back there.
My name's Chris Dabbs. I'm the executive producer for a show called The Three Drinkers. Great panel. Thank you so much. Really informative. We're now on the second series of a show we're really proud of. Amazon have been great at distributing it worldwide. We're now at 167 countries and territories in 30-something languages. What is interesting, we're completely brand funded on this.
So it's a brand-funded show distributed on Amazon.
Distributed out on Amazon worldwide.
So they commissioned it.
No, we went to them and negotiated on their global distribution rather than.
So they put some money in for you to make it. Yes.
Nope. We had it completely brand funded.
Brand funded. Okay.
So it's an SVOD brand funded show.
Yes. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Right.
There you are. As for second season, now what's the question?
So we're now on the second season onto this, and our arrangement with them is, if a linear broadcaster picks it up in a particular territory, we can pull it out from that territory for a specific amount of time that we negotiate with that linear broadcaster.
Right.
Because a show has been on something like Amazon, or on something like that, as linear broadcasters, and we have two people out there, but we have four experts, will that put you off the fact it's gone somewhere else?
Okay. So, understand the question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Greg, do you want to take a...
No, I would say, in
No?
a nutshell. No, I mean, we not that they're branded content shows, but we have lots of well-established shows that we've picked up from other kind of platforms. We're showing Friends. It used to be available behind a paywall on Netflix. It does very well for us. It does a great number.
So you'd have to look at the show and see if there's a lot of product placement or anything that would fall foul of the Ofcom rules, correct? I mean, does it fall foul of the Ofcom rules? No, he says, okay. So basically... Yeah, you could look at that, something like that. So it doesn't really matter where it started, as long as it's good content.
As long as it's a good show, and we think it'll get an audience, you know, I mean, the reason we do ad-funded shows is they also fulfill a need for us. They give us good audiences. We've got to believe a show is going to do well.
Right.
But if it's going to if we think in our judgment, our scheduler's judgment, it's going to do well and it's ad-funded, bring it on.
I think Channel 4.
There's
You
another
said
one here?
Arse Water, is that?
What were you saying,
Is it
Sash?
Arse Water? I think...
Oh, you
Channel-
mean, Walter Presents.
Walter Presents.
Walter
yeah.
Presents,
And isn't that a case of kind of scouring international
Yes,
drama?
it is, yeah.
and then-
Scripted.
It's very much, that's a good example, actually. It's very much like I would perceive that as an acquisition. Why would a broadcaster, a linear broadcaster, for want of the best phrase, not pick up a piece of content that's, got a certain reputation around the world? It doesn't matter.
Go down to
It's not-
MidCon and sell it to them. I'm sure they'll buy it.
I think what my one point I'd like to make about Ofcom and being a PSB is that we are regulated more harshly than an SVOD like Amazon would be. I mean, we're working on a project at the moment which is linear first, and then they want an SVOD, and the SVOD's for a second window. So we have a linear TX and a 30-day, probably more, actually 6-month holdback on VOD in the UK, and then it goes to SVOD with Amazon, and the regulators, the regulations are much harsher on us than they are for linear, than they are for and for our VOD service than they are for Amazon. So undue prominence, for example, but I won't go down that route now. I'll talk to somebody.
That would be a lesson for producers to, when they're making shows, when it's going on something like Amazon, to make sure that we did it, so making sure it's suitable
For real television or linear television.
Yeah.
Right, got it.
Yeah.
Okay, another question here. There was.
Hi there, Richard Barnett from Horse and Country TV. The other side of the telescope, but we're Ofcom regulated, other than a few breaks that we get from the PSB licence. And I just wanted to pick up on Simon's point about Ofcom's 3 pillars and the promotional one being the hardest. And I know that there are in the notes some notes about, if you show a thing being used repeatedly, then that's a sort of grey area. But to give you an example, we have a reality show where the contestants have to get a horse ready for a showing judge. We do a product placement deal with a Hoofshine product. You see it being used repeatedly. I'm always a bit nervous about that stuff.
I love it. I've learned something. I didn't even know there was a Hoofshine product. God, how many people knew there were Hoofshine products? Okay, so you were worried because
but
it would be too
I'm just interested in
right?
where that seems to be moving ever easier, to be honest.
Yeah,
I'd be interested in Simon's
I
view.
mean, that's editorially justified, though, isn't it? You've got to shine your hooves.
Got to have
So,
Yeah? Was that answer your question?
No, it does. If you guys are happy, then I'm following
You're
your way.
happy, okay. And the horses are happy.
I think that's
free
getting complaints because I think we're pushing and we continue to push and challenge. But my biggest gripe is, for example, there's a show on Netflix at the moment, which was funded by Ford, I believe, and it's called A Faster Horse, and it's all about the development of the new Ford Mustang. And it's a great show. It's just like the show that Channel 4 might commission about inside Rolls-Royce or the £1 Million supercar, the Jaguar story series. But because Ford paid for it, we would not be allowed to do that show. And yet, it's a great 90-minute documentary about...
Because they wholly paid for it.
Because they wholly paid for it, and because it's considered unduly prominent and self-promotional. Well, it's not, because to the viewer, if the viewer watches that and thinks, this looks like a great show about the Ford, what does it matter how it's paid for?
So maybe that's another thing that you recommend that Ofcom look at.
Yes.
Right.
And I am.
You are.
Because the content could be completely compliant if it wasn't paid for by them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we have one here, and then there's another hand there. Okay, so let's do you first.
Great panel again. Thank you so much. My name is Michael Ford. I'm an independent producer working particularly in children's, and I think that would be a really interesting topic in itself. But my question is probably something that a lot of people are thinking, which is money related. And I realise that you probably can't talk specifically around budgets because of kind of confidentiality. So I was trying to think of a good way to ask this. But if I wanted to make the most expensive brand-funded show myself, what kind of budget would I need to spend to beat the current reigning champion?
So maybe it's about sort of what is the...
I mean, we
be 7 figures?
We are talking about shows at 2 million plus brand investment. And lots of the time, we do bring some money to the party. Not always. It very much depends on, certain
what it is. So like with the Ant one, you actually co-funded that because you thought this is a great idea. This is our on-screen talent. it's going to work.
It's something we wanted to do. We set out wanting to do it, and we didn't have deep enough pockets, and Morocco wanted certain rights, so we will let those go. But they pay more of a proportion of the budget than we do because of that. We just want the UK broadcast rights.
I mean, it's such a wide scale because I've had brands fund shows for £150,000 an hour. Then I've had brands fund shows for close to £500,000 an hour. So it really depends on talent.
Yeah, sometimes the talent are an add-on. So the budget might be comparable to what you get from the channel, but then someone will say, I want that talent. You're like, well, they're going to cost £100,000, and they'll pay it because that brand association is so important to them.
Got it. That's interesting.
Thank you.
Okay, and then there was another here. Yep, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Matt Thompson. I'm a PR guy. I used to offer TV interviews with chief executives of car companies. So we might have a supercar manufacturer. We'd say to the TV news channel, would you like to do a TV interview live? Now in the US, what we've seen increasingly is that the TV station would say yes, but there's a fee for that. And when the TV interview is run, there would be, this interview is sponsored by car brand. Are we going to see that happen in the United Kingdom?
News channels, the regulations around current affairs and news are just so much harder. I think as a news provider, I would fear you're seen as selling out. If you've got promoted messages within your editorial, how you're supposed to be completely unbiased, right? And I just think, for me, that's a bad road to go down. That's my personal opinion.
I think you'll get entertainment within entertainment shows. It's probably acceptable to have a branded strand within IM. But actually, news, it's exactly the opposite.
The news is a different kettle of fish entirely. In editorial, no.
In the States, you see it all the time. You'll see this within the actual news segment. There's a proper television news interview sponsored by a brand.
We are finding brands doing content partnerships with news providers, be it the broadsheets or contextual ads with Sky News or whatever it might be. But I think being that embedded in the content is, it's risky territory, I think.
That may be a road too far for the UK right now. There's one here. Is there another? Where'd the mics go? Sorry. And then there's one at the back, if we could get that mic to this lady in the back. Go ahead, sir.
I'm Christian Aurora. I work for an Australian broadcaster called SBS, which is also partly commercially funded. And we take a lot of Channel 4 and Channel 5 shows. I actually wanted to talk about some of the if you like, the sort of social issue programmes that are all over UK public service TV and commercial TV, and whether there are places that advertisers might want to go in those shows that we're not used to. I know, you mentioned Old People's Home at Christmas.
Age UK, yeah.
But that's a charity, and I suppose that might be a bit different. It's squarely in their target. Do you think we should be looking at getting brand funding for prison shows or ones, car chase programs? Are there areas that producers and maybe even broadcasters aren't thinking about?
So that mic needs to go to the lady who's just behind you waving her hand. Thank you. Can you answer that question? Sorry, everybody.
From something like that, a brand wants to have to do it. So I think, in the past when we've looked at formats like that, brands tend to shy away from it unless it's a part of a brands with purpose kind of initiative. Or a CSR initiative.
Purpose.
Purpose is
Purpose is one of the things we use. One of the words we use at Channel 4. We talk to brands and advertisers. Say, what's your purpose? What purpose? So your Lord Kana is a social. Is effectively a social issue program. I think it's cop chases and prisons. But there are brands like Unilever, who, for example, whose messages do good. There is editorial strand in that. There are ways to go with that. I think it's happening. And Old People's Home is close to it, but it's a charity. But I think the brands, some of the briefs we get now, we stand for this and we want to let people know. So editorial actually is really good for purpose, social purpose, brand purpose. It's just got to be the right purpose. Yeah.
Are you worried about ethics?
No, I mean, I suppose I'm just worried for our audience if they would stop believing in the programme we were doing if we started getting a brand to fund it. I mean, we do it with food shows and entertainment shows. You know, we show Eurovision, for example, with some brand funding, but we don't do it.
I think it's a more authentic way for a brand to do that, to be honest. Talking about food waste, for example, is a brief we see a few times, and going, how can we tackle food waste or waste? And brands want to be a part of that. And television editorial is probably the best way to do that. It's the most authentic way to do it.
Television editorial?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
In other words, using television content to talk about storytelling, editorial storytelling, to talk about food waste, or somehow integrate that into a show
with
about
incredible talent who believes in it, like loyal, you know. So
delicate handling.
Delicate handling, absolutely. But the best way to do it, actually, show me, don't tell me. You know, that's the thing about editorial, is it can show people that the brand means that it's the purpose rather than, you know, running an ad saying, we do this.
Yeah.
Saj, you have something to add? Yeah.
I was going to say, I think when brands are doing that, it always helps if they're already involved in that area. I saw an example recently where they were trying to clean plastic waste out of the sea, the Baltic Sea, and I think it was a finance company in Switzerland, and what they did is they actually took that plastic, they made credit cards, and then the more you spent, it kind of somehow or another, it kind of pay for the cleanup. But actually, it was a really, it was a really
gave you another credit card. No, sorry.
I think they raised debt transfer. I think they raised £3 billion off the back of it. So that was a standout case study in the industry in Europe, and I've never seen anything like that happen before. But I mean, you know, it was a black credit card, and it was phenomenal. But that was a partnership with purpose that actually had.
I like that.
I think, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
You're going to do it. You really, really have to do it.
Yeah, properly.
You can't just say, we'll make a show about it. You have to also live it and breathe it as a brand.
Yeah.
Okay. Lady in the back there.
Hi, everybody. I'm Debbie. Hello. Hi. And I'm exec producer. Worked with Saj and Simon a few times. Just really pleased to see you all here, and thank you. And Emily, I couldn't agree with you more. It's so much easier to work with an agencies involved from a producer point of view than director brand, because you have at that time it feels great, but then the footprint of the demands of that brand, so it's so much better to work with an agency. But the problem in a few brick walls we've had, and I think with Saj and Simon, where I've got a brand completely engaged in an idea, come into the broadcaster, they're prepared to pay a producer, and we're just looking to get our show commissioned and maybe enhance the production value by maybe a more high-profile talent or being able to go to different locations, you know, just to help. We're not necessarily in for the income, it's just to help us get the show away and make it to the standard we want to. And then when the numbers are run and the media value is added on, that was a problem I had in the past, and I wondered, because I love the idea of rethinking advertising. So when they've done the numbers, they're thinking, well, you know what, we can do all this campaign, and then it's sort of closed down. So I just wondered if there's more cooperation now between the ad sales department, the commissioners, and the whole idea, because that's always a struggle to go back to the media agency and say, they want this towards the content, but this towards the media, and then sometimes it doesn't add up.
So is it a double, thank you, that's a great question. So is there a double hit for the brand? In other words, do they have to put money into the content, the editorial content, and then does the sort of the media side of the house say, you know, in your case it would be Sky, and, you know, in your case it would be Channel 4, say, oh, by the way, if you want the spot that's the bumper,
No.
more money.
No. On linear, we are, I mean, you know, that's a good question, because it is a problem we hit sometimes when somebody, you know, a producer comes and, you know, we go, this is the slot, this is the support we give it, this is the package we'll give it. We don't need any more media money, but we suggest you do, because you will get better results, because you'll activate it, back to my previous point about making the show and creating advertising and assets around it. But the media value doesn't stack up, and the clients, you know, that They may just be looking at it in the wrong way and not thinking, well, what other activation, what other value can we get out of it? Does it say something? Because they're looking at it as a sheer media sell, 90% of the time it won't stack up. Yeah. It won't stack up. Yeah. They need to, and then sometimes the channel will put some money towards it to help get it close to stacking up into the production. Not always, I have to say, but it won't stack up. You have to do it for other reasons. And
is that a problem that you face, Saj?
I think now, as an agency, we are very open with our clients. We're saying, if you're doing this for an ROI perspective, it's not necessarily something you should be doing. I think in the past, because I've been on both sides and I've worked with Debbie before, I think we've always been scared to say that because we want it to happen. But I think now, if you've got an agency and teams that are actually really forthright from the outset, I think it's a better conversation to have. And I think ROI around content isn't necessarily, it's not the way to go.
But activation is key. Yeah. And if they activate it, actually the ROI would stack up, especially social and digital. That's really changed the game for us.
Social, definitely.
This has been fascinating. I think we've come to the end of our time, and I know that there's some drinks afterwards. So I'm gonna bring this to a close. Thank you so much for all of your interjections and questions. And could you please join me in thanking Simon Wells, Saj Nazir, Emily Hudd, and Greg Barnett. Thank you very much.